Thank you so much for joining us today. This is I think it's our 9th installment of our series here. And so we are talking most all month about open-to-buy, merchandise planning, and just retail best practices and tips and tricks. And so the last 2 sessions, we really leaned into marketing and focused on competitive analysis and how you can better market as a retailer. And in today's session, we are back to open-to-buy. And today's topic is a holiday season special. We are talking about the 7 biggest mistakes in managing your open-to-buy. So quick housekeeping, we are recording this session and everyone who registered will get the recorded link after the live session. And we encourage questions. So on the right side, on the GoToWebinar pane, you can ask any questions. Feel free to drop them in there all throughout the session. At the end, we'll save 10 minutes to go through all the questions that are submitted. And with that, we will kick it off. So first, I'll just introduce everybody quickly. We have Dr. Michele Burton from Montclair State University joining us. We have Jeff Sward, founding partner of Merchandising Metrics. Myself, Michele Salerno, Chief Growth Officer here at Celerant. Dmitry and Jeff Dillon, both from Ant USA. And a quick thank you to our panelists. We have done this many times and we get a lot of different registrants each and every time. And so I appreciate you all joining me and sharing your knowledge. So first, for those of you who aren't familiar with any of our companies, we'll just give a quick introduction of who our companies are. So go ahead, Jeff.
Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Sward. Merchandising Metrics is all about consulting and trying to take my experience in retail and help retailers understand a deeper level of assortment planning and risk analysis, risk mitigation. I come from department stores and specialty stores and brand management, so I've got a pretty well-rounded experience about how lots of different segments of the business operate. So welcome.
And name some of the brands, Jeff. I love when you always rattle off the list of brands that you've worked for.
Well, Paul Ralph Lauren and Donna Karan and Tommy Bahama and Lily Pulitzer and in some, connection. So it's been a wild ride.
Awesome. All right, Michele from Montclair State.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michele Burton. So I work for Montclair State University in our fashion design and merchandising program, where we have about 260, 270 amazing students here in our program. So I know a lot of people might not be familiar that universities even have fashion design and merchandise programs, but I specifically work in our merchandising side, and students take classes like fashion marketing, retail math, why am I drawing a lots of other classes, consumer research, consumer behavior. So one of the things I want to point out, if you're looking for internship or interns, or you need student help or anything like that, please definitely reach out to me. I would love to hear from you and talk to you about how our students might be able to help you and form a partnership. So that would be great. And also always looking for guest speakers. So that would be wonderful as well. Definitely reach out to me.
And also, Michele has quite a few students who need internships this calendar year too. So if you need some help, Michele has a lot of interns that are ready and willing and able to help you out. Just send her a note.
Thank you.
All right, Ant USA.
Go ahead, Dmitry. So we've been in this business building sort of planning and open-to-buy solutions, delivering consulting for over 30 years. And our client base ranges from smaller family-owned companies to billion-dollar plus industry leaders, anything in between. And we're true believers in this, in the benefits, and we'll talk about that throughout these webinars.
Awesome. And we have a lot of Celerant retailers on today's session, some though that are not. So just real quick introduction for Celerant. We are a retail software provider. So it's a full retail system for all your sales channels in store, online, point of sale, e-commerce, mobile apps, inventory. It's a full system, even digital marketing. And so we have 2 different platforms that we offer. We have Cumulus Retail, which is our lighter, more cost-effective solution for smaller merchants. And then Stratus Enterprise is our more advanced solution. Both of those solutions integrate with Ant USA's 2 solutions. They also have a lighter and a more advanced offering. So there's really a seamless integration between the 2 to help facilitate a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. But we are not here today to sell our software. We are here to have an educational session, which is what we love to do. So again, I'll just say that we've done this now 8 times. And so we have a playlist on YouTube where we have all of our previous sessions, and we've got some phenomenal industry experts here that are sharing a lot of wealth and knowledge. So it's just a great opportunity to learn, especially if merchandise planning and all of these conversations are relevant to you and your business. So today's topic is the 7 biggest mistakes in managing OTB. So they're up here on the screen. We're going to talk about all 7. I'll go through them quickly. The first, of course, is not even having an OTB developed, right? If you're saying, well, what exactly is that? And I don't have that formally laid out. Well, that is definitely the first mistake, right? The second mistake, of course, is not enforcing or even paying attention to the plan that you have developed, because it's great to come up with a plan, but if everybody in your team is not following that plan, then what good is it? Not updating your plan. It's not a set it and forget it type of thing. You set it, you develop your plan, but you need to be continuously, regularly checking in, making adjustments in season. Over-reliance on last year's data, right? If you just take a report from last year and make all your planning based on that, that is definitely not the best practice and not what you want to do. It is important to look at last year's numbers, but there's a lot of other factors as well. Delayed markdown strategy, right? When are you taking markdowns? Are you waiting too long? Are you taking them too soon? What are you marking them down to? There's a whole process and science behind it. Poor management of entry and exit dates. I think that's one of Dmitry's favorite topics. So Dmitry is going to really take us through that one. And then the last one is my favorite topic, marketing. And specifically, the mistake here is ignoring market trends, ignoring your competitors, and or not paying attention to what they're doing and actually taking some action based on that. So we're going to jump into all 7 of those, but before we do like to ask poll questions, get everybody engaged, see who's on the call today. So the first question here, I'll put it up in a second, and you can select the answer that most applies to your business. What is your biggest challenge right now? End of season inventory, missing key trends, timing and scope of markdowns, sales forecasting, or differences between stores. So I'm going to pop this question up. Think about what your answer is going to be. All right, I just launched it.
We see it.
Great. So go ahead and make your selection. Again, the question is, what is your biggest challenge right now? End of season inventory, missing key trends, or not realizing what the trends are, timing and scope of markdowns, sales forecasting, and differences between either regions or stores, depending on how big your business is and what that might look like. All right, we're at 45%. We're at 64%. Good, everybody is paying attention. Good, 73%. So go ahead, I'm gonna leave it up for just a few more seconds. Let's try to get to at least 85%. Select what is most applicable. All righty, we're at 80%. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this. And Dmitry, talk us through here.
So this is, it looks like the answers are all focused around sales, the top line, right? So missing key trends, obviously, most likely degrades your sales. And then, you know, forecasting sales is in the same topic. So it sounds like everybody's looking forward to boosting sales, more so than than end of season inventory, which I will predict that the next time this kind of a question will be asked, because
It's only November.
yeah, well, after Christmas, when we have a follow-up session, I guarantee you that just focusing on sales forecasting will mean the next time this poll is answered, lots of people will worry about end of season inventory and markdowns,
Yep.
because you'll have some left over.
All righty. So let's jump in here. We will kick it off with mistake one, not even having an open to buy plan developed. So Dmitry, take us through this one.
So in our practice, we, as I mentioned, we work with retailers of essentially all sizes, and literally during a given week, we'll be working with fashion retailers, chocolates, farm stores, shoe stores, gift stores, sporting goods and apparel stores, and that's just this week, I think, frankly, the other people that I've talked to. And it's pretty amazing in the sense that the people that have developed plans before and that follow the plans understand innately why that's a necessary and required part of running an effective retail organization. Tons of people don't. So we end up talking to somebody with like 5 stores that doesn't even know what an open to buy is, and we end up talking to somebody with 300 stores where the buyers set their own rules, and the end result is always the same. If you put in the plans and an open to buy practice, which really open to buy is basically, forecast your sales or plan your sales, decide how much inventory you need to support the sales. That'll give you the needed receipt flow, and you buy to that receipt flow. So ABC, it's super easy. We covered it in the previous webinars. Everything else is, all the complexities in this are designed around making those kinds of decisions better, more efficient. The bigger the organization, the more you pay attention to secondary KPIs. Companies that do this basically turn faster, right? Because you find the inventory you don't need, and you also find inventory that you need but you don't have, so therefore your sales suffer, and typically have better margins. That's one. Second is, in the organizations where the buyers rule the roost, they often also complain about the fact that the guidelines are not clear, not effective. It's very important to think of planning and open to buy as a practice to help the buyers essentially be more effective. So they have specific talents. Those talents need to be deployed in terms of, negotiating with vendors, detecting trends. Don't make them planners if you can avoid it. Give them some guidance. Third is, frankly, everybody you compete with, or most everybody you compete with, probably already does this. So it's a little bit like not having a fabulous point of sale from Celerant and just doing your cash sales on paper tickets. You just be less effective and less competitive. And finally, markdown planning and margin planning is very important, and we'll talk about it later in this conversation. So when it's willful and well-timed and planned for, you end up giving fewer margin dollars to forced markdowns. So for all those reasons, you can turn faster, you can make more money, you can have your buyers be buyers, you can ward off competitive assaults. All those reasons you need to be doing planning open to buy. And how do you fix it? It's not that hard. You're just going to focus on, like I said, sales forecasting, sales planning, inventory targets, and kind of buy to the receipt flow that the system calculates for you. Okay.
All right. So we'll switch gears here to mistake number 2. So in this scenario, you have a plan already developed, but you're either not enforcing it or not paying attention and just not following it.
Yeah, thank you, Michele. So you get over that hurdle of hearing about this thing called an open-to-buy, or having new staff come in and wanting it, needing it, helping to create an open-to-buy. A very common starting point for that is Excel or a homegrown IT sourced access database or something. Or you go out and buy a commercial system, and for a host of reasons, it just doesn't latch, it doesn't hold on, it doesn't connect to the enterprise. And why is that? Before I speak to the ones on the list, other reasons that can exist, and let's take the Excel example. It can be a huge burden on staff to cobble together an Excel open-to-buy. And planners, a particular planner with a little IT geek in them is usually assigned the role of bringing in sheets from 5 different systems and then VLOOKUPing it to death and then pivoting it to death, and often breaking it, or someone else breaks it, and then they share that Excel sheet with others and one of them breaks it.
Well, can I just add to this? I'm laughing because this was a topic we talked about in my Vistage meeting yesterday, which was how many high-level senior executives in your organization do you have piecing together pivot tables and Excel data and all of those things, when if they just embraced technology in a better way, it would be so much simpler. It's just a common struggle across all markets and all levels.
And we see people that do this, and some do it exceptionally well, some do it exceedingly well. Okay, great, they can have it. Good for them. There's some absolute, Microsoft gurus out there. But what we more often see is that the burden to create it leaves no time for analysis, which then leads us to then why even do it? Or Bob, the dude that does it, leaves the company and no one else knows how to cobble those sheets together, and it fades away. So be it Excel or be it a system, the burden of it sometimes can weigh too much, or it becomes an optional system. It's like when Celerant sells in a point of sale system and a merchandise system, its use is not optional. So how and why do merchandising systems uses become optional in an enterprise? And that happens when there's an absence of senior management leadership directing the key importance of using that open-to-buy. And it really boils down to senior leadership. We create a calendar, a regular review cadence to review the open-to-buy. Well, too often other things get in the way of that meeting. Too often Bob doesn't have the spreadsheet prepared for it on time, and it's accepted. Too often we allow vendor dynamics to interfere. Well, the vendor's telling me I have to buy this much anyway, so why do I need an open-to-buy? There's things that get in the way, and it's easy to set aside. Another reason that can happen, not on the list here, is we can overcomplicate it. Oh my goodness, the rows and rows and rows and columns I've seen in one sheet trying to answer the unanswerable at times. Simplify it. If you're going to do it, especially early on, start as simple as that previous slide said. Give me a sales plan at the hierarchy, by vendor, by location, and just get used to analyzing it that way, and then add in other stuff once the adoption and the value is realized. Lastly, and this one sort of ties back to senior leadership commitment also, is make the results of the merchandising buying staff contingent upon their performance reviews and their bonuses. We have margin targets, we have turnover targets, we have the tools to do the analysis to accomplish those goals. Use those tools well, because at the end of the season in January, guess what? We're gonna reflect on your role in the success of our company.
Well, and when you tie it back to their own pocket, that's when they'll really pay attention. And
it can be a wake-up call for sure. And you know, other departments have their bonusing criteria. You know, the merchandising should also. So you know, how do you fix all this? You train well, you teach well, you coach well, you tie it to a performance metric of their own. You know, inventory metrics aren't the only metrics in the building. And you set clear expectations.
Look, there are a couple of, like, really quickly, some to add. We see a lot of this, particularly in a couple of scenarios. Like, for example, we have a lot of like farm and ranch stores, right, or discounter stores using our software. And a lot of those are family-owned businesses. In particular, in family-owned businesses, which we love. The buyers are often there for 20 years, you know, and they're artists. And you don't tell them what to do because they're buying whatever it is they're buying. They've been buying it for a long time. So it's very hard to enforce budgets and guidance and guardrails on them. That's one. And the other is, we see this also in some sort of heavily brand-driven businesses where the vendors are so powerful. You know, the goods may be allocated, you know, the luxury goods or something like that, where the buyers become sort of almost an extension of the vendor's will. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So those, in particular, in those two scenarios, you know, if you can develop an OpentoBuy, you can develop a plan. If you're not mindful of resistance, then you end up not enforcing it.
All right, so now mistake number 3, not updating your plan on a regular schedule. Like we said in the beginning, it's not a set it and forget it. You have to continuously be monitoring and adjusting.
Okay. So I'm going to dig into this one a little bit more, and I think it's a nice transition from Jeff Dillon and what he was just saying. So I'm going to talk about, not updating your OpentoBuy regular schedule, and I'm kind of already flipping to fix it, but when you think about this, establishing a regular calendar. So best practice would be a weekly process. So just like Jeff Dillon was just saying, talking about tying it to performance, to me, this is one of the, you know, reasons somebody might be motivated to do that, especially if it's tied to their performance. And you want to think about this because obviously sales trends change, which can be dependent upon weather. Whether it's fickle, which is the second bullet point. It's hot one day, cold the next, and it's actually occurring depending on whether your business is just local, whether it's regional, or whether it's national, maybe it's international. So you have to be thinking or understanding what these weather challenges are and how it impacts your sales trends. Obviously, like suppliers don't ship on time. Maybe they say they're going to ship half of what you expected. Maybe it is supposed to be for a big promotion and you were counting on those sales, but you need to know what's going on so you can reflect that in your sales, which then tells you how much inventory you have available. So tariffs and market changes, obviously that's happening. You need to stay cued in on what's going on in the marketplace. So even though this slide isn't necessarily about that, you still need to have an understanding of exactly what's going on. So establish a regular calendar. I can remember, you know, for some of the retailers I worked for prior to coming to academia, like every single Monday morning, sometimes like even Sunday night, like I'm looking at my OpentoBuy, I'm looking at my sales. Am I making my original plan? Am I making my revised plan? How does that trickle down to receipt flow? And so my job as a planner was then to immediately to be able to discuss with my buying partners what was going on in our Monday morning meeting that might even precede, or maybe we have a Tuesday morning meeting, but I provide them with that information in advance so we can react quickly. So that's the thing you want to think about, is updating your OpentoBuy on a regular schedule really allows you to move as quickly as you can. So best practice would be a weekly process with a monthly review that again is tied to performance. And that monthly review, I have one call out there, is you might think about inviting leadership into those monthly meetings. So like a monthly open to buy meeting is what I was accustomed to throughout my career. So maybe the weekly meetings are just the team. Your monthly open to buy meetings involve leadership, involve your marketing partners, whoever you feel like would be a valuable resource in that meeting. And especially when sometimes we don't think about this, but when it comes to our marketing partners, like if vendor A isn't going to ship this on time, how does that affect our promotions? Do we need to talk to our marketing individuals to make sure we are correcting the advertisements or whatever else? Maybe you have something on social media you're posting. You need to keep all those individuals cued in, and sometimes we don't think about that necessarily.
Michele,
So
I love that cross-departmental, expansion of your life, your story, your world. Because it's easy. It's often common. What are they doing over there in merchandising? Why don't we have this? Why do we have too much of that? And to socialize and to get buy-in to your plan with a monthly, quarterly check-in with others is a great idea. And that might force you to use your open to buy more. Also,
right.
you're now accountable outside your right.
Because how many times do we not really talk to those partners on the other side of the aisle? So it's a great way for us to stay in regular communication.
And I wish our poll question was, how often are you meeting with your team? Is it weekly? Is it every Monday morning, like Michele said? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Is it something else? Is it none of that? Because that is very telling too, which goes back to mistake 2. All right, next, we'll keep it moving here. Mistake 4, over-reliance on last year's data. Now this one has a fine line, right? Because when you're looking and planning for next year, what's the first thing we do? We go back and look at last year. So walk us through this, Jeff.
Yeah, this one has a lot of moving parts. And I think I'd start by saying that we're talking about this at a particularly appropriate moment in time, meaning we're 6 weeks out from Christmas. We're 8 to 10 weeks out from the start of a lot of markets for fall of 2026. So the formulation of next year plans is in some point in motion right now. And so the first thing I'd say would be that it's really just too easy to take last year and roll it forward. One of the single biggest things we have to do is determine the why of this year's performance. And, why was something a bestseller? Why was something a worst seller? And the other thing is about the data that, if you sold out of something in October, when it comes time to finalize the buy plan for next year, do you really remember that stuff that you sold out of in October that you could have sold another 1,000 pieces of if you'd have had it? So the composition of the last year numbers could be so different and it's this ongoing process of the weekly meetings that have to crank into the data, the narrative of why the data reads the way that it does.
And you have to write it down because we think we're going to remember. And then as time goes on and more things happen, and then the year passes and then 2 years pass, you don't remember.
And the other part of that is this don't live in a vacuum. Customers have so many choices these days. So if as a retailer, as a brand, you've got to be aware every week of what else is going on in the market. If you thought you had a bestseller, but all of a sudden it's not, well, what happened? Did a competitor mark it down to half off? Did somebody else overbuy it and they're trying to unload it? Did somebody else simply have a better item? Because that's through the eyes of the customer.
Are you even aware that your competitor had it for half the price?
Right. You've got to look at your data, not through just your eyes, but you've got to look at the broader context of what did the customer have available to them that caused my performance to be what it is. So
and you might have done it to yourself. You might have done it to yourself by expanding that category or adding a new category, you know, so don't forget to look in the mirror.
Right. And that, I think, is what comes out of these Monday meetings, is the opportunity for different perspectives within the team to pressure test what's going on, so that it's not just buyers or planners crunching numbers. It's store people giving their input. It's marketing people giving their input. And out of that comes a much broader story, other than you just get to the end of the season and you look at last year's data and you tweak it and think that that's open to buy management. It's not.
And also, I just wanted to add really quickly, like going back to when you have those notes, so Michele was pointing out, like taking, like writing it down, when you have new people come into the team that have no idea what happened, and maybe you yourself don't have time to sit with them and give them the full scope of what's happening over the last couple of years, but then they have something to look at, they can access, so when they start their role, they can see what's happened and they can sort of hopefully hit the ground running.
Yep. And they can understand the numbers.
You know, we missed.
I think determining the why helps give a lot of guidance to how you respond to the data for the forward seasons.
Dmitry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was trying to say, it occurred to me that we should have made it an 8 mistakes, because we missed a mistake. I don't know what the mistake is, and both Michele and Jeff kind of talked about it. But you can crystallize it like that. If we see, you know, uber powerful vendors or uber powerful buyers, right? You know, that's why you can't enforce. You can't enforce easily. On the corporate side, you know what happens? A lot of the plans come down as a financial plan. You know, the finance department, and you talk to the planners, and nobody involved the buyers in developing those plans. And so the finance, right? You see these people nodding, right? And so the finance department says, I got to have a 6% increase, you know, in men's sports apparel or something. Why? Right? So the family-owned companies typically don't suffer from that. They'll get like a store performance target, and then the buyers do it. But the corporate, oh my God, you're working with a $300 million, $500 million, $50 million corporate where finance dominates, and you got to deliver the results, and they don't talk to the buyers, and therefore it's 6% over last year, or it's 2% below, or this and that, and the buyers will figure it out. So if you don't have finance, the buyers and the planners, whoever acts as a planner, if you have planners, you know, ideally with store ops feedback, then you're going to miss out on signals. So this is just a way. This is another way of saying
That's mistake number 8.
That's mistake number 8. It's much more prevalent in corporate environments, and the bigger the corporation, often the dumber it is. I hate to say it, right? That's the advantage for the family companies.
Careful now.
I want to build on one thing Dmitry just said, because it's really important. I think the way he expressed it was uber powerful vendors or brands. And my point would be is that buyers have really strong relationships with pretty much everybody they buy product from. And they become long-term, good, solid relationships. And if all of a sudden a really significant brand starts to underperform for whatever reason, and the forward open to buy suggests that that brand be cut in half, the conversation with that buyer, between the buyer and that brand becomes deeply uncomfortable. And there's going to be a lot of give and take about how that conversation goes. So, you know, the data may be telling us to do one thing, but the relationships we have with our suppliers may be so intractable that it's really difficult to implement the kind of change that the data is really telling us to do. It's really uncomfortable stuff.
Yep. All right, so now we're going to talk about markdowns and mistake number 5, which is an inefficient markdown strategy.
Yeah, again, I'll note that it's November 13th. We are exactly 6 weeks out from Christmas, and we're looking at the 6 busiest weeks of the year. We're looking at the make or break weeks for a lot of businesses. And it's a really great time to make the example of how much inventory do I own? What's its rate of sale? Am I going to be selling down and out of this inventory at the rate that I want to? And you can look at your numbers and say, well, gee, yeah, this category looks like it's going to sell through okay by Christmas and then January. But a category that looks okay is going to have a whole range of performance within it. It's going to have best sellers and worst sellers. And the best sellers are going to sell out the first week of December. And the worst sellers are going to sell out maybe in March. You can't just sit here and let that happen. You've got to have a markdown strategy that deals with it now so that you accelerate the rate of sale on the worst sellers without giving away margin on the best sellers. And what that basically means is you can't just stick up a 25% off sign on the whole fixture or the whole store, because all that will do is accelerate the best sellers along with the worst sellers. But there's got to be a way to be surgical enough and timely enough with the markdowns so that you change the rate of sale of the worst sellers so that they will sell out on a timely basis and not give away the most important margin you've got on the best sellers. So it's, you know, timing is everything, and the ability to be surgical about the implementation of markdowns is everything. It just can't be 40 off and okay, I'm done.
And also
Well,
paying attention too, because what you thought or what you expected to happen might not have happened. And so being aware of where everything's moving within that time frame, and that you may have to shift the strategy at an item level.
You want
Monday meetings.
And while we're 6 weeks out, which is a great reminder, and we've looked at some items and they're good and fine, and we've looked at some items, oh gosh, they need attention one way or the other. Well, that whole process begins again next week on the 5th week out. Don't think you're done 6 weeks out. You got to keep looking at it over and over and over again, especially if you're a holiday-centric retailer.
I think you plan at the category level or a vendor level, but you track and execute and adjust at an item level. So think of it that way, right? Spend a lot of time, or as much time as you can, thinking about the bigger numbers. That's your overall direction. But when, you know, you get the best sellers, you know, and the dogs, right? That's only visible at the lower level of detail. And that's the level that you should be targeting markdowns at, or even rebuys or infills. So that's the easiest way to think was plan at the rolled up level, track, analyze, and adjust at the detail level. And you know, this is a topic. So if I had to talk about sort of, you know, assuming that you have a plan in place, right? So what happens is when we stand up a system, we always load history into it just to see what happens. And very, very often we look at categories and people do the same things over and over and over again. In other words, they repeat last year, and I could look at the numbers and I can detect a bad habit in 15 seconds flat sometimes, right? And I've been doing it for a while, but you can do it too, because they're all the same. Again, I'm talking about $1 billion corporation or a $10 million store, everybody does the same things. One, sometimes people bring in receipts too early. Sometimes that's because the warehouse can't handle it and you're shifting a lot of product through and so on and so forth. But a lot of the time, you bring in receipts too early because the vendor will give you better terms. Right? Why would they do that? Right? They're giving you a free lunch, right? We know how well that goes, right? So you got to think about cost of holding that inventory. You got to think about the fact that it's actually not selling. You could squeeze something else out of the store. A lot of people will bring in seasonal inventory too early. And if you use something like a GMROI, gross margin return on investment, which is probably the single best profitability measure that I know, owning extra inventory longer lowers your profitability or your return on capital. That's the first mistake, just simply too early, right? You bring it in July, but you sell it in, September or October. Second, it's even more expensive is you bring it in too late. You're selling winter goods, come February, people start buying spring stuff, and you're still, shipping receipts in late December. You got to figure at some point that you're going to be selling stuff out, selling stuff down, selling stuff through. Late seasonal receipts almost always result in too much end of season inventory that gets, again, owned too long, often marked down, or you have to pull it out of the store, put it in on the shelf in a warehouse someplace. And then there's a carrying cost, which actually people don't think about it, but the industry average estimate is about 11% a year is your average. That's between financing and pests and handling and space, 11% a year. So if you bring it in too late and you bring in $100,000 too much, that's 11 grand down the drain just for that year. Third one is toning of markdowns to sell down, which, yeah, that's fine, right? So this is so exciting that we can make spelling errors because it's an exciting topic, right? So you're not going to do well by selling swimsuits at a discount in November, right? Everybody knows this. Nobody thinks about it. There's this famous NRF study that was done years ago that basically said well-timed early markdowns result in smaller cumulative markdowns, which means you don't lose as much margin if you swallow hard and actually give people a better deal when they still want to buy the product, right?
All about timing. Yep.
As a consumer, you know this, right? For you to go and buy that stuff when it's completely out of season, you'd be like, "Is it 70% off?" Right? I don't want to put it on the shelf otherwise, right? In the house. And then, the last point that I would say is kind of relates to the timing of initial receipts. There is no such thing as free lunch. You take the risk when you take the inventory, you take the carrying costs. The vendor is pushing it out because it's better for the vendor than it is for you. And if they give you extended terms and you don't sell within those terms, you're stuck with it. So how do you fix it? Discipline. You establish that calendar that we talked about. It's the simplest thing in the world, just a calendar. If you don't know how to do it, reach out to any one of us. We'll talk to you about a pre-season, an in-season, a monthly, and a weekly. It's a very, very powerful tool that's very easy to set up. Here's a trick worth millions of dollars. Today, go and review your past due. See what kind of orders should have come in July or in August, still haven't come in. Review and figure out if you still need it. Literally, this is magic dust. Like, I've done demos when we take somebody's data, which we typically do that. We typically try to build out a system using somebody's historical data before they buy anything from us. And during the demo, you can find $1 million or $2 million in a sizable business just in a product that's still coming in. They don't want to come in. People just forget about it. They don't close off orders, right? It's one thing if it's 2 weeks past due. It's another thing if it's 2 months past due. I ran into a situation once where they were still getting goods that were due nine months ago. So easy money, easy money. If you do nothing else, go review your past due. Get rid of what you don't need. You have an excuse. You're not going to fight with the vendor this way. It's just money on the bottom line. And then, re-examine the habits. So, the early receipts and the late receipts are repeatable behavior patterns. And we see this again and again and again in retailers of all sizes. Told you I was passionate about this one.
Yes, Dmitry's favorite topic is entry and exit, timing. All right, and so our seventh mistake for today's session, if we don't count the 8th one that Dmitry added in there, the 7th mistake is ignoring market and competitor research. So we actually had our last 2 sessions were focused on marketing, focused on competitive research. I really encourage you, if you missed those sessions, to go back and watch them. One of them, I think it was the July session, was super tactical. Talked all about tools, digital tools, free tools you can go out and use today, right now, for no money, to help you better manage this. And then, of course, some other tools that have a cost, but some are small, 20, 30 bucks a month. Some, of course, are larger, depending on the tool. But the mistake is just ignoring this and not paying attention and just being so busy in your day-to-day that you're not paying attention to what your competitors are doing. And of course, market trends, which, by the way, was one of the biggest challenges when y'all took the poll question at the start of the session, was not staying aware of market trends. So everything moves super fast, right? And you have a plan, you may have a plan, but then, like someone said earlier, your competitor is offering the same product at half the price. Do you even know that? Are you even aware? What is that doing then to your plan? So there's so many things, we talked in the prior session about Google alerts. Do you have these Google alerts set up for your company, for your competitors? Are you paying attention to social? Are you social listening? Are you watching and following on social media, paying attention to what they're saying, how they're saying it, what they're talking about, the types of things they're posting? Reviews, of course, pay attention to your own reviews, but pay attention to the reviews of your competitors. There's so much opportunity that is available for your business when you actually take the time to pay attention to what your competitors are doing. Fix it, right? The biggest, everyone knows this, nothing I'm saying here is rocket science. It's just no one has time, right? We all get so busy in our day-to-day that we just don't find the time or make the time to do these things. So building a listen and learn, as we called it, habit, making a plan, assigning different team members for different areas of this, develop a calendar, make it part of your regular cadence, regular team meetings, and just talking about it. Divide and conquer is what I like to say. So have different people handle different things and then bring it together in your team meetings and make it part of your regular conversation. We are going to do one more poll question here, and then we are actually wrapping this one up. So this question is, out of everything we just talked about, which of these is most relevant to your business? So the first, of course, is not having a plan, or I grouped these two together just to save some options here. Either not having a plan or having a plan but not following it, right? In the end, it's the same thing. In the end, it's not being followed through with. So second option is not updating your plan regularly. Third is relying too heavily on last year's data. Fourth is a delayed markdown strategy. And 5, poor management of those entry and exit dates. So let me pop this one up and let's see where everybody sits. All right, I just launched it. So go ahead and select the answer that makes the most sense for your business. Which of these issues or these challenges that we talked about today are most relevant for you and your team. All righty, go ahead. All right, we're getting some votes now. Looks like we still have everybody on the session, so go ahead and place your vote if you are still here with us. There we go. We're at 20. Oh, there we go, 36%. Okay. For a second, I thought we lost everybody. We're at 60%. All right, go ahead and select the option. I'm going to close this out. Yep, we're at 80%. Great. So I'm going to close this because that is good enough. And Jeff Dillon, go ahead and read those responses for us. You should see them now.
Which of these is most relevant to your business? Over-reliance on last year's data. So maybe we hit a point in our mention, our discussion that over-reliance can be an issue. Jeff Sward mentioned, to make sure you're armed with the whys of the anomalies. And the most important thing to do is to capture those whys in a format that you can retrieve them when you're planning then that next year's business. So sure, I mean, very classic, common OpentoBuy first absolute touch when I'm starting to plan 9 months out is to look at last year. And I can say same as last year at the highest level, or 1% more, or to Dmitry's point on corporations, 6% more. Well, at some point we got to get into the weeds, and we got to know why. We got to find the anomalies that had existed in that prior year that aren't revealed in the data, and make sure we adjust for them. And it's discipline. It's really coming up with a way to capture the non-data, the human researched whys, so that you can accommodate for those in your future plans. The rest of them are sort of split across, not even having a plan or not updating it. They're sort of the same. If you don't have it, but you do have it and don't use it, you're pretty much in the same boat. I guess you're really having to take a step back and decide if that's right for you. Now, if you don't have a planning system, don't have a plan, and all of your inventory metrics line up beautifully, and everyone's getting paid beautifully, and we're depositing profits as expected beautifully, maybe you don't have a problem to solve. But until we're there, we encourage you to plan.
All right, let me flip this back up. All right, so we put a quick slide up here talking about how retailers really apply this to their business. These are just three, I think this is from G2 actually, so 3 different retailers with some feedback that they've shared about working with, and this is a plug, of course, to Ant USA, but more importantly than even that, it's from my perspective, it's the results of working with and having a solidified OTB plan, right? Whether it's Ant USA or not, these are 3 examples of what this can do for your business.
And what they're saying here, Michele, is everything we've discussed. And it could be Excel, I guess, even though one of them here, David said, you've relieved us of the burden of creating the Excel world we were in. But they're all talking about, the insights that are gained from using their OpentoBuy, and how those insights lead to, better seasonal requirements, better markdown strategies, better inventory position. I mean, that's what we're after. So these are users of an OpentoBuy, happens to be ours, and they're reinforcing all of the points that we brought forward here. The ease of use, hierarchical planning is mentioned. And then certainly, and here's a bit of a plug too, connectivity. Remember the VLOOKUP pivot table thing? Well, if you're connected to an ERP like Celerant, of which we do connect, and you're feeding data into a very rich, very developed database like ours, all that's done. You can be strategic now and not worry about the mechanics.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, and this is for those of you on the call who are using our Celerant software, we've got our Cumulus platform, our Stratus platform. Ant USA has Buyer's Toolbox, which is more aligned with our Stratus, and then Retail Optia, which is more aligned with our Cumulus, and both of our systems integrate seamlessly with both of theirs. So it really helps just automate the transfer of data between the two systems so that this can all be done really pretty easily.
When we're talking to prospects, I mean, one of the top 3 questions is always interfacing. How do I get data? You know, that's a big part of this. And that's presumably because they've been through that Excel experience, we'll call it.
Yep. All right, so we did something special this go around, really, I guess we can say in celebration of the holiday season here. So we are going to pull one lucky winner out of all of our registrants today, and whomever I pull out of this little bowl here will get a free coaching session with any one of us, which would have a $500 value, which would probably be, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours worth of coaching. Again, with whichever panelist you choose on here, whether it's talking to Michele and working with her with the interns, or it's me more on the Celerant side or the marketing. I can absolutely help with marketing, or of course, Dmitry, Jeff, coaching session there about OpentoBuy merchandise planning. As Dmitry said, in 15 seconds, looking at your data, he can probably point out some pretty big mistakes. And so, or just, you know, telling you to look at your past due. So a couple hours with any of these guys would be a huge, huge bonus for you. So let's see. We're doing it the old fashioned way here. Let's see. All right, we have David Corbin from DK Mags Inc. So that is our winner. So I will reach out to David after the live session to coordinate this, and congratulations. And we'll do this more often. Yes, thank you, Jeff. We'll do this more often because, you know, we really do host these sessions every month to help educate our clients, the clients that already work with Ant USA, those who don't. I always say it, I'll say it again, if you leave here with 1 or 2 little nuggets that you can bring back and apply to your business, it was well worth the 45 minutes here with us. And on that note, we will talk about our next session. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. The next 6 weeks, everybody will be very busy with what should be hopefully the busiest 6 weeks of the year. So we will take a break and we will regroup after the NRF show, which of course is in January. We will all be at NRF. I'm sure many of you will be as well. For those of you who will not be joining us at NRF, we will have a recap of the NRF show, as well as the holiday season recap. And we'll be doing all of this in mid to late January. We haven't picked a date yet, but it will be after NRF, which probably puts us more towards late January. But it's the perfect time to do a holiday season recap. And of course, what we've learned at NRF. And we're really interested to hear from all of you. So some of you have joined almost every session that we've hosted, which this is, I think, number 9. I'm losing track, 8, 9. But what do you want to learn more about? We do tend to just shift topics a little bit each month. So you can drop it in the question area. You can just send a note. Of course, you can send us an email too, but we really want feedback. You know, what areas really resonate, or what sessions have we done in the past that you really want to dive deep into, or is there a certain topic that you just want to get super tactical? You know, we've got some real brainiacs here across the team. So tell us what you want to learn more about. We are eager to really dive in and have you help us shape the future sessions so that they can be really educational for you. And this is, okay, here we go. So this is our 8th session. So these are all the recorded sessions that we've done in the past. You can check them out on YouTube. The link is there as well at the top. You can watch them all. This one will also be included and recorded later today. Here is all of our contact information. As always, we encourage you to reach out directly. If you don't want to drop a note in the question pane there, you can shoot any of us an email, and we are happy and eager for that feedback, and we'll use it in future sessions. So we are at time, but we did have a couple of questions come through. So I will just read those off, and if anybody else has a question, drop it in. we'll answer it for sure, even if it's via email. So the first question here is, I am using Celerant's Cumulus software. How can I get started with getting help setting this up for my business? So I will say this, you can send me a note, or we can reach out after, but just reach out to your account rep. We will get the conversation started on the Celerant side. And then Dmitry or Jeff, you guys want to take that for your side?
Yeah,
Well, go ahead, Dmitry.
I was just going to say, talk to us. You have our email, but let's have that conversation. See what you want to achieve. So we always start by saying, you know, where do you want to get to, and basically, you know, you set up the interface. We pull the data. We can go through your data and maybe find you some money pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question. So you mentioned earlier not to look at historical data, but I assume that has to be a part of it. What else am I looking at if not historical data? Jeff, Dillon, I see you shaking. You want to take that one?
Yeah, I'm feeling like a broken record, but we didn't say don't look at the data. We said don't overly rely on it. So yes, absolutely, positively. And then Dmitry mentioned several times layers of the hierarchy. You know, big numbers, medium numbers, then SKUs. Yes, you're absolutely going to use historical data, but you need to be critical of it. You need to make sure you can drill into it and recover the 20 or 120 or 1,000 incidences that happened in season that were remarkable that aren't revealed in the data. And after you do high level, category level, subcategory level strategic planning, not just the accounting department saying we expect 6% more, then you got to inject those other critical pieces, and then you got to inject what's the forward look. What are my vendors telling me? What are the economists telling me? What is the weather telling me? You got to consider all of that in your future plan.
Absolutely. All right, we are going to end it there. We went a little bit over, but thank you to everybody who joined us. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Happy holidays, because we won't be back until January. So we'll all be at NRF. Visit our booth. I should have put our booth number up. I forgot to do that, but you know where to find us. Thank you, everybody. Panelists, thanks for joining, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all.